A government is like fire, a dangerous servant and a fearful master. George Washington. The Constitution had been signed in 1787, but a constitution is only ink until someone breathes life into it. That task fell to the Federalists, Washington, Hamilton, Adams, and their allies, the men who controlled the first government under the new constitution and who spent the next 12 years deciding what an American government actually looked like in practice. The Federalist regime lasted from 1789 to 1801. Their opponents, the anti-Federalists, had extracted a promise during ratification, a Bill of Rights. Many states has been agreed to join the Union on the condition that individual liberties will be explicitly protected. The Federalists, who now held power, would have to deliver. One of the first accomplishments of the Federalists was incorporation of the Bill of Rights in the Constitution. James Madison had once opposed a Bill of Rights, arguing the Constitution itself limited government enough, but political reality changed his mind. In 1789, he stood before the first Congress and introduced a set of amendments, not as a favor, but as a necessity to secure public trust in the new government. Of the amendments Madison proposed, 10 were ratified by the states in December 1791. Freedom of speech, religion, and the press, the right to bear arms, protection from unreasonable search and seizure, the right to a fair trial. These were not abstract ideals. They were direct answers to grievances against British rule, translated into permanent law. The Bill of Rights did something crucial. It convinced skeptical Americans that the federal government could be powerful without being tyrannical. It was the price of legitimacy, and the Federalists paid it early. A constitution that established a judiciary in one Supreme Court meant little without structure. So in 1789, Congress passed the Judiciary Act, legislation that built the entire federal court system from nothing. The act created the Supreme Court with 6 justices, established federal district and circuit courts across the states, and critically created the office of Attorney General. It gave the Supreme Court the authority to review state court decisions when federal laws was in question, tying the states together under a single legal framework for the first time. This was not a glamorous accomplishment. No battles were fought over it, no rebellions crushed, but without the Judiciary Act, the judicial branch named in the Constitution would have remained a phrase without a body. It gives the young republic something very functioning government needs, a place where disputes could be settled by law rather than by force. Then came the first real test of federal authority. In 1791, Hamilton got an Excise Act passed with a view to secure additional revenue. This act appeared unfair and unjust to the farmer of Pennsylvania. For the farmers, whiskey wasn't a luxury, it was currency, a practical way to transport and sell surplus grain. The tax hit them hard, and by 1794, resistance turned violent. Tax collectors were tarred and feathered. Armed farmers threatened open revolt. President Washington did something no other American leader had yet done. He personally led federal troops into the field, nearly 13,000 militiamen, to put down the uprising. The rebellion collapsed without a real battle, but its meaning was enormous. The federal government had proven it could enforce its own laws within its own borders without falling apart. This was a defining and uncomfortable irony, a clear message. The Constitution authority was not theoretical. On the frontier, the Federalist government faced a different kind of conflict, one with the native nations of Ohio Valley, who resisted the steady push of American settlement onto their lands. Early military campaigns went badly for the United States. In 1791, an American force under General Arthur Clare suffered one of the worst defeats in the nation's history against a confederation of tribes led by Miami and Shawnee leaders. It was a humiliating blow to the federal authority. Washington responded by rebuilding the army under General Anthony Wayne. In 1794, Wayne's forces defeated the Native Confederacy at the Battle of Fallen Timbers. The following years, the Treaty of Greenville was signed, ceding large portion of what is now Ohio to United States in exchange for annuities and recognition of remaining native lands. These settlements expanded federal territory, and demonstrated the government's growing military capacity, but they came at a devastating cost to native nations whose sovereignty and land continued to erode under US expansion. It is a chapter of nation building, inseparable from displacement. The founders had warned against factions. Washington himself would later caution against the baneful effect of the spirit of the party. And yet, under his own administration, the first American political party was born. The split began inside Washington's own cabinet. Alexander Hamilton, Secretary of the Treasury, wanted a strong central government, a national bank, and a close tie with Britain. Thomas Jefferson, Secretary of State, feared centralized power and favored an agrarian republic aligned more closely with revolutionary France. Their disagreement hardened into organized opposition. Hamilton's supporters became the Federalist Party. Jefferson and Madison allies became the Democratic Republicans. But the mid-1790s, newspapers, pamphlets, and public rallies were openly partisan. The government the founder built to rise above factionage within a decade produced exactly that vision they feared, and in doing so laid the foundation of two-party system that still shapes American politics today. By 1798, under President John Adams, tension with France brought the young nation to the edge of war. Fearing foreign agents and domestic subversion, the Federalist Congress passed four laws collectively known as Alien and Sedition Acts. The Alien Acts gave the president sweeping power to detain or deport non-citizens deemed dangerous. The Sedition Act went further still, criminalizing the publication of false, scandalous, and malicious writing against the government or its officials. In practice, it was used to prosecute and jail journalists and politicians critical of the Adams administration. The backlash was immediate. Jefferson and Madison secretly authored the Kentucky and Virginia resolutions, arguing that states could judge the constitutionality of federal law, a controversial doctrine that would echo for decades. The Sedition Act, in particular, is remembered today as one of the most direct assaults on free speech in American history, and it fueled the political defeat of the Federalist Party itself in election of 1800. In just over a decade, the Federalists built the machinery of American government almost from scratch. They secured individual liberties in the Bill of Rights, constructed the federal judiciary, proved the government could enforce its laws during the Whiskey Rebellion, expanded the nation's territory through conflict and treaty of native nations, and, however, unintentionally, created the political party system that endures today. But they also passed that criminalized dissent, revealing how fragile the commitment to liberty could be even among the men who just written it into law. The Federalist era was not an age of simple heroes. It was the age that proved the American experiment could survive its own contradictions, and that the tension between liberty and authority would never fully disappear. As Benjamin Franklin is said to have remarked when asked what kind of government the Constitutional Convention has created, a republic, if you can keep it. The Federalists kept it barely, and the keeping was never finished.